So welcome. We're presently trying to finish up chapter 3 today. We've been on chapter 3. This is our fifth session on chapter 3. We've been looking at relationship on the winding road of life, looking at relationship through the seasons of life, from being a child, adolescence, or on teenage years, to the young adult life, to the middle adult life. And today we're going to be looking at the late life. Late life starts from about, mid-60s is what the book says, and that's generally agreed on. Some people will look at it from 61, and, until death. That also can be broken down to about 3-4 places. We have the young old life, which is anywhere from 61 to maybe 75. You have the middle or the old life, which is somewhere between 75 and 85. You have the oldest old life or old life, which is anywhere from about 85 till about 99. Then you have the centenarian, which is 100 plus. You can break it, segment it in different ways, right? But we're just going to look at it as a whole stream of the late life, anywhere from about mid-60s till death. That's what we're going to be looking at today. We'll look at that stage in our life and pretty much looking at it from a relationship standpoint, right? As we look at that stage in our life. Good. Welcome to another time. As I get to do, I'm going to bring up my slides here and we're going to shoot. Good life, right? Again, that's the book again. Those are the authors, Marshus and Robert Waldinger. Both had the Harvard School of which studies adult development, So pretty much the book is a compilation of the results of the study they've been doing. They've been doing this study for more than 85 years now, so it's pretty much a compilation of results from the study. So this is like a real life event study result that we're looking at, and with a bit to maybe learn a thing or two from it that we can apply into our lives and make our lives better, so that's the whole essence of what we're doing, so thanks Val Rector. Thanks for the wave. Thanks for stopping by or passing through. So pretty much we're learning, not for the sake of doing the book. Like I say, I don't do this for the sake of doing it. It's all with a beat to learn something and apply in our lives and make our lives better. Like I gotta say, the first listener audience to all of this is myself. Right, I do this. It's a selfish way for me to read books and learn from it and apply it in my life. So if there's only one audience to all of this, it's me, right? But if any other person can come along, great. But it's a selfish way of developing myself and hoping someone else can come along as I do. Right. So let's go to today's session, and pretty much it's chapter 5, part 5 here. Talking about relationship on the winding road of life. This is our fifth take on that in chapter 3. And pretty much we're looking at the continuum of life, right? We all come as children, we get born with children, right? And in that continuum, we're dependent. We come in dependent when we're born, right? We begin to then lose that dependency and gain independency as time goes on. We lose that dependency and gain independency as we grow, right? So we'll grow through from childhood. We'll go into our teenage years where our struggle, our desire, for independency is probably at the height. And it's also being enforced by the hormones that begin to grow, that begin to flow into our bloodstreams, right? So as adults, there's puberty period. You have hormones flowing, begin to differentiate the boys from the girls. As children, it really doesn't make a difference. You see, the girls are with flat breast, flat chest, you couldn't differentiate the sex, but with hormones beginning to flow in adolescence, with puberty setting in, there is a differentiation. You're no more looking at that girl without any feeling anymore, but because there are now differentiating features in the genders, that kind of differentiate or bring some other meaning to friendship, and there are ways to relate at that stage of life. There are ways to relate at that stage of life, which is not the same as when you were children, preteen years, The beauty of looking at all the stages is to understand that we change. And as we change, life has different expectations of us. The expectations of us as children is not the same expectations of us as teenagers. It's not the same expectation of us as young adults. It's not the same expectation of us as in our midlife. It's not the same expectation of us in late life. Even as those expectation changes, our internal expectation of ourselves also is changing, right? Because there are hormones that are flowing to our bloodstream as we enter into each stage of life. Those hormones that trigger puberty in our teenage life, our adolescent life, force us against our maybe laziness or inertness to grow, right? Because those hormones determine, features that differentiate our gender, right? For men, beards, for women, breasts, and all the other features that begin to differentiate the genders, right? And as we go into our young adult life, then those hormones begin to stabilize, as it were. Those hormones that kind of just force themselves into the scene and destabilize us. We begin to get a bit of stability with those hormones. And just as we get those stabilities, we go into our midlife, and we have new hormones begin to flow into our bloodstream, taking us into adolescence, taking us, into what they call that thing, menopause, and all of that, other things that begin to trigger in the midlife. Then we go into our late life when we're supposed to have stabilized all of those disturbances of menopause, and we're pretty much settled, getting ready to leave the scene. So all of those things have happened to us. It's not that we decided, it's the way life is structured to happen, right? It will happen to you. It's not because you've sinned. It's not because you made a mistake. It's not because you offended somebody. It's not because God does not like you. They are structured to happen, right? And whether you win or lose when they happen is a function of your understanding of these changes, both internally and externally. Right, and that's the reason we're studying it. That's the reason why it was studied by the Harvard School, so that we can win. We can win even in these changes. Like Isaac Newton would say. He says, "I have gone further. I have done better, than those that have gone before me, because I sit on the shoulders of giants." I sit on their shoulders. And that's what we should do also. But people have taken the pain to do this study. We can use this study to win in life, right? Like we look at the 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. There's nothing you're going through that's strange. There's nothing you're going through that's extraterrestrial, right? It's all a human issue. You're going through a human problem. You're going through a human challenge, and human challenge have human solutions, right? Whatever you're going through, you're not the only one. People have gone through it before you and they succeeded. Some failed, but a lot succeeded. You can learn from the success, you can learn from the failure and do better, right? All right, let's go on. All right, so we're talking here about the late adult life, right? I would say again, it's from mid-60s till when we leave the scene, and the tag for it we're talking about here is minding what and who matters. This time you're no more struggling. You've gone past those injection of the hormones, that gets you all worked up in adolescence life. You have gone through that settling of those hormones in young adult life as you begin to then get a life. You've gone past that place where you're using the life you've gotten in young adult life in the midlife. Now it's time to rest. Not that you won't still be active, but what marks the stage out is wisdom, not strength. As a young adult, as an adolescent, you had all the strength in the world. As midlife, you still have strength. But what will mark this out is the fact that your strength is not really there. You've exchanged wisdom. You've exchanged your strength for wisdom. You've gained experience. You don't need to exert as much energy as the adolescent will exert to do the same thing. You don't need to exert as much energy as the young adult will exert to do the same thing. You don't need to exert the same energy as someone in midlife will exert to get the same thing done. You can use your wisdom to gain speed by doing less. You can do less to get more because you've gained wisdom, you've gained experience, right? So I'm gonna wear my glasses to see this better, So when we're young, we're looking forward, we still have so much years, we're worried about tomorrow. In our midlife, we're probably getting more conversant with our mortality, and we're thinking about today. In our late life, we're pretty much recounting the past, and we're recounting our journey, as we begin to close the page of our life. It's a time when you've retired from work, and you're probably looking at your work life, and you're reaping the fruit of your labor, whatever that might be, good or bad. So you're pretty much recounting and gaining experience, from the life you lived, so obviously time is precious to us because we don't have too much of it at this late life. The people that die below 60, now you're at 60 plus. You could leave the scene at any time. So every little moment is precious to you. You don't take time for granted. You're not a teenager that's just jumping here and there and wasting time. Now you have experience, and hopefully you can maximize the time that you have. It's kind of questions that come to you will include, how much time do you have left? Because you don't know, but you're close to it. Probably have less time ahead of you than is behind you, right? You're talking about how much longer you can stay in health, and be able to fend for yourself, carry yourself. You don't have to be label other people. You're asking yourself, if you're gonna lose your mind, people which is getting prevalent these days. People will have memory loss and all of that. People have stroke, get bedridden, and all of that. Those are things you want to guide against. As much as this season your physical body tends to lose, but there are ways in which you don't have to be a servant to that tendency. You can reduce your aging, right? You can arrest some of that aging by doing the right things, right? By taking your medicines, if you're on medicines, exercising, sleeping well. This is not a time to start doing macho stuff, right? You're past the midlife, and leave all that midlife crisis behind you. It's time that you begin to settle down. You begin to adjust to the reality of the stage, the season, the phase of life that you find yourself. You don't try to do things as if you're still in your adolescence. You don't try to do things as if you're in your young adult's life. You don't try to do things as if you're in your midlife. The reality is that you're in your late life, and you have to respect yourself. Because if you don't respect yourself, life will humble you, right? But that's not to say also you use that as an excuse. You can reduce some of that aging process, by doing the right things, by taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit. Right? You can take care of the goose that lays the golden egg, and you can reduce the aging or slow down the aging process. That is possible, right? As much as this is the season of life, you can get the best out of this season of life by what you do, right? You're only going to reap the result of what you do, right? So you ask questions about What do I want to spend my limited time doing, right? The time you have left, you're asking, what do I want to spend that time doing, right? Hey, thanks, Pastor Fuller. Thanks for stopping by. We're talking about your season of life. We're talking about the late adult life, which I know you are in. You're 67 or so, thereabout now, I guess. So we're talking about the late adult life or late life, which is anywhere from mid-60s, And so questions that you might ask also is, have I had a good enough life? What was meaningful about my life, and what do I regret? So pretty much in this stage of life, you're looking backwards, and beginning to take record, what have I done well? What have I not done well? And you're coming to terms with it. You can't change it. You can't change whatever you've done well or not done well, but it's getting the right lessons, that you can begin to then, put in right perspective, that you can do some things to whatever you can do about it today, and also pass it on to the coming generation, right? It's a tree that you're planting that you might not necessarily have to be under the shade of. You have gone past that time, but whatever you've learned, you can speak to your teen self. There are people that are in their teenage years, that still have years in front of them, that they can do better than you did. Right? They can do better than you did. So speak to them of what you've learned. Speak to the young adult of what you've learned. Speak to those in their midlife of what you've learned, because you have the benefit of experience. In our Yoruba proverb would say that a child cannot have as much rag as an adult will have. In your late life, you have rags that the younger generation can benefit from. First of all, you have to come to terms with it. Look at what truly is a lesson learned. No sentiments, right? It's not being. It's not crying over spilled milk. It's just learning the right lesson so you can pass it on to the coming generation. That's a benefit of late life. The Bible